From Brazelton, Georgia to upstate New York, the Real Racers Virtual Club and the Spring Formula 3 season rolls on here live on RaceSpotTV on a Tuesday night. My name is Arjuna Kenkipati, delighted to be joined as always by Nolan Rempel with Hugo Luis down in the production booth controlling the action. TV cameras designed by Istvan Balor and TrackCams22.com with additional car cameras provided by RaceSpot's own Tyler Maxson. You can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to timing71.org to follow along with the best in real and virtual motorsport. Nolan, we are here in Watkins, Glen. Only 3 rounds in the Spring Formula 3 Championship left to go. And well, once more is Anders Krohn looking to go to victory lane here on a Tuesday night.
Oh, absolutely. And what better track to do it than at Watkins Glen in upstate New York? This is such a fantastic track. You got yourselves about 7 turns to the left and 5 to the right, meaning it is going to be in for one heck of a time here tonight for the 25 minutes of racing action in these Delar Formula 3 machines. No doubt we are in for a very exciting race tonight.
We will cross the coast next week to Sonoma. For some reason, I had it drilled into my head that we would be there this week, and we will round out the month of June and this 11-race championship by heading to Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin on June 22nd. Let's talk very briefly about the championship standings as well. And it's hard to really give the full indication of what's going on here, Nolan, because there are drop weeks in effect. It looks very close, only 7 points affecting between, I should say, the top 3 drivers. But given how Anders Krohn is running away at the top of the championship, those drop weeks may very well be crucial in determining this championship picture.
And the standings you got up on the screen, those are the projected standings with the drop weeks taken into effect. Now, of course, those can obviously change from race to race depending on how results factor through. And in fact, if you look at the unaffected results, there is a tie at the top of the point standings as well. But with drop weeks factored in coming into this race, just 7 points separating first through third. Rick Sheridan still holding on to that top spot, but only just.
It's close as well between Kurt Panzagru, the defending champion, Dave Anderson, Max Butler, and Jeremy Clark. So watch up and down the field in terms of the championship picture. Let's talk a little bit more about this track then by taking a look at our track map, because this is a wonderful circuit. Up the hill through the S's and then down in towards the inner loop. You will fly your way through that right-hand carousel type of corner down in towards the chute and through that boot section as well. This is a roller coaster. I say that so often now, but really is a roller coaster of a track, Nolan. And for just 11 corners, it's deceptively tricky, and it's really hard to describe until you take a look at the cars running around this track.
It's going to be interesting as well to see how pass is going to play out as well. Obviously, one might assume that the longest run for a good pass opportunity would be down into that inner loop with the massive full-out stretch that you get up through the S's of turns 2, 3, and 4. Now, of course, the problem is with the inner loop, it's a very fast chicane. It's very hard to actually make a good dive bomb pass. So in reality, turn 1 at the 90 could very well be a very good pass opportunity as well tonight if you could get a good run out to that final corner of turn 11.
And of course, draft is pretty important in this F3 car, but it'll be interesting to see just how important on that run up through the hill. There is the 8 car of Kurt Panzagru, the defending series champion. He's working his way over the top of the hill in towards the inner loop. You want to carry as much momentum as you can. Just over 60 seconds left in this practice session before we roll it on over into a 15-minute qualifying session. And at a track like this, Nolan, it will be pretty interesting to see if maybe the Butler boys go together and work on the draft, because you can tow yourself up the hill, you can tow yourself all the way around the boot as well. There's lots of opportunity to find time on track.
Oh, absolutely. There is certainly a lot of areas where you can go around and try to find some draft. Now, of course, it's worth noting as well that at the moment, Joe Butler in this practice session 1.2 seconds behind Max Butler. So it seems like Max Butler, as always, week after week, is going to be the better of the 2 drivers. Now, the question is Joe Butler going to be so eager to give that draft to his sibling? That's going to be the interesting thing to keep an eye on here.
Well, and you can see Krohn is clear at the top for the 3rd consecutive week in a row. Butler over half a second off the pace, and we were wondering if the young blood of Nolan Siegel would show up for today's action. He's preparing for a lot of racing this coming summer. He is in the session and potentially will look to get just that little bit closer. Wasn't able to really challenge Krohn last time out from Road Atlanta. What a wonderful track that was to see these Formula 3 class slinging their way around. Practice comes to a close, though. We will work our way into that qualifying session and take a look at just how much confidence these drivers have in their cars underneath them. Let's take a look at the practice results as well, just before the cars work their way out onto the circuit. So Anders Krohn half a second clear of Max Butler. Let's see if Nolan Siegel can close the gap. Krohn played some games at Silverstone with Butler. Fisher in that championship fight, he will be looking to try and make some impressions, and from third on the grid, if that's what he can do in qualifying, he'll look good as well. McGuinness, Panzegru, Clark, Escajeda, Bull, Sheldon, and Hudson, the rest of the top 10, as we see the cars working their way up through the S's. Joe Butler at 1.7 seconds, so there you can see lots of cars ducking and diving, just trying to find some space. For a moment, it looked as though the left rear, I think that was on Siegel's car, went flying in through the air, but just looks like that new damage model had a little bit of a sensitive contact. It will be getting, so 3 wide as well, as they all just try and jockey for track position. The new damage model will be getting some updates tomorrow. The new build is just around the corner, and we were talking about this before we came on air, Nolan. Usually build day is on a Tuesday, but this time around it's on a Wednesday, so fortunately for the drivers here, no unexpected changes to think about for today's racing.
And it means as well that if there are any changes coming along for the Dallara Formula 3, which it would not surprise me if there were, there usually is for just about every car on the service when you get builds like these, especially so close at the end of the season as well. You know, these guys are going to have a whole week to be able to get to grips with the cars before we get to a track like Sonoma, a track that is so difficult to drive, and it is really a driver's track, that track is. So good thing that if there were to be any new updates, they would be coming in at a track like Watkins Glen, where you're able to kind of get a bit more room, I could say, to navigate yourself around. As we ride on board with Nolan Siegel, about to start his first time lap of the session.
So let's go on board then for a lap here at Watkins Glen, down across the start-finish line. It's a downhill braking zone as late as you can as Siegel blinks in and out to the inside, but not using all of the curb. And you'll see some drivers swing their way out wide. Some drivers, like myself, like to try keep it a little bit tighter and keep that momentum rolling yourself up through the hill. You can see Siegel just trying to minimize the distance as he works his way in towards the inner loop. He's in 6th gear right now. And how confident will he be to sling it down in through the inner loop? How much curb will he use? Because that might unsettle the car as well. Doesn't use so much on the inside, but there you can see, almost runs into the grass as well. But look at how much speed he's able to carry now in through the carousel, this right-hand sweeper that almost operates like an oval turn, and in towards the boot section. You start in through the heel, this left-hand downhill, and it's always pushing you out wide, but Siegel almost 90 degrees of steering angle as he comes through turn 6, up in towards turn 7. This one is uphill and braking there, so you can try and just carry more momentum up the hill and get on the power slightly earlier as well. Siegel now just 4 corners left to go, and it's looking pretty good on the lap time. Be one of the first to come around as well, breaking at the 100-meter board on the left-hand side, and not so shabby there. You can see almost coming out into the grass. That would invalidate his qualifying lap time. Can't afford to do that. Over the crest of the hill there, and the car's always trying to just get out from underneath you as you get onto the power. We saw that in the ISO WC as well when they came in with the Indy cars. Penultimate corner, almost flat to the floor. But now in through the final corner, what will the time be for Siegel? It's a 1:39.691 for Anders Krohn once more at the top of the timing sheet. Siegel in and out of existence. Only 3rd fastest provisionally. Robert McGuinness in 2nd, Nolan.
And both drivers over 0.3 of a second behind current provisional pole sitter Anders Krohn, who's currently up there with a 1:39.690. There's Jackson Ball, who's going to go 4th fastest on the day with a 1:41.602. Joe Butler working the little track as well, just behind. Currently just came down through the chute, now up for the uphill hairpin at the toe.
Some new liveries on these cars as well. We'll wait and see for a couple more lap times to come in right now. Almost 10 minutes to go, which means 5 minutes are done. The top 3 separated by 0.3, and with draft being so important, like I was saying earlier, Nolan, it'll be interesting if McGuinness and Siegel can make things difficult for Krohn. He played some games at Silverstone. I don't think he'll have to do that here today.
I don't think he will either. This is going to be interesting here to see how Joe Butler is going to be able to work this one out here. It's the Watkins Glen is not a track where you necessarily need the most amount of practice in the world to get a hang of it. It's a very easy track to drive, all things considered. Of course, I say that with a little bit of bias, having driven this track dozens of times myself on the sim, in just about every car there is on the sim as well. But it's a very fun track as well. I know that a lot of these guys are going to be having a lot of fun here today. Joe Butler not logging a time. Must have gone off track somewhere and had that lap invalidated.
Exactly what I was talking about earlier as well. There's Siegel down on pit road, and Siegel is gearing up for a busy summer. Like I said, his next USF 2000 race will be in 2 weeks at Road America. With good luck, hopefully he can do well there and return to the season finale of this championship on a Tuesday night in a couple of weeks' time. He's also fresh off the Freedom 90, if I do get that one correct, at Lucas Oil Raceway at the day before the 500. Many of the drivers were in attendance as well. It was great for them to cheer him on. Let's go ahead and take a look at some highlights from his 2021 campaign. And it's not just USF 2000 for the 16-year-old who just got his driver's license recently. His daily driver is an E46 Denon modified M3. I think many people would be jealous to have that as their first car at 16 years of age, but he'll be competing in the upcoming weekend from the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge race from this very track, Watkins Glen, alongside his father Mark and Tom Dyer. Oh, as he has a big off in qualifying, he'll be hoping not to have that in his GT4 race because, well, that would be some expensive damage to get fixed on his car. It's great to have someone like Nolan in this community as well. You've got the young blood in the current F2000 driver and the old blood, Anders Krohn, the former F2000 champion as well. Interesting to see the two generations there. McGuinness is also a driver on the road to Indy as well. So it's great to see lots of these drivers competing in these Tuesday night events, Nolan.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, you get a lot of drivers here that have a lot of talent underneath them, and I would definitely agree that Nolan Siegel is among them. I mean, we talked about he races USF 2000. You saw right there 5 top 5s, a podium, 2 podium positions, 1 pole position as well. He's got himself, of course, that race in the Audi R8 GT4 for the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, racing at Watkins Glen, like you said, in short order here. Not to mention as well, the 2018 Sim Raceway Formula 3 champion. So that is a young driver who has a lot of talent underneath him. And I'm going to be honest, a very impressive racing resume, all things considered as well, being at such a young age as well.
Hey, let's hype up McGuinness as well just a little bit because not all the hype can go to Siegel and Krohn as well. I mean, there's only 1.5 tenths off Krohn's pace right now, but busy 2021 for McGuinness. He's competing in Indy Lights alongside a campaign with the Vassar Sullivan Racing Team in their Lexus RCF GT3 car in the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. 13th at Daytona, 6th at Sebring, so it's been a rough start to the season. How can they bounce on from there? He was victorious in 2019 in his Indy Lights campaign with Andretti Autosports at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Has been competing in 2021 as well. 6 minutes left in qualifying. Anders Krohn goes even faster, a 1:39.016. If there's anyone who's going to break into the 38s, it will be Krohn. Panzegu, the defending series champion, very wide through turn number 1. You can see the delta between 1st and 10th positions is 2.2 seconds, and it's Rick Sheldon, the championship leader, Nolan, in some trouble.
He's got himself, what is that, about 7/10 of a second there off of Joe Butler's time. So Rick Sheldon is in some hot water at the moment if he wants to try to continue to hang on to his championship hopes. I've been talking about this for so long. I mean, this is not necessarily a driver. And I mean, no offense to Sheldon, but he has really not been on pace with a lot of the guys up in the front runners all season long. And he's really struggled to maintain that points lead. He is currently tied for that points lead without factoring in the drop weeks, and just 3 points gained, 3 points up in that points lead as well, coming into this race with the drop weeks factored in. So Sheldon has got a lot of very difficult work ahead of him here.
So let's see how things go. I just saw Nikita Lastoshkin has joined into the session as well. Not as a driver, I think, but as a spotter. And for those who don't know Nikita, he competes semi-regularly in Monday night iRacing IndyCar Open competition. You saw him in the 2021 iRacing IndyCar Challenge races as well, competing alongside the NTT IndyCar drivers. Returned to the cockpit as well in the real world as in Indy Lights alongside McGuinness. So interesting to see Lastoshkin maybe just following on with some of his friends in their sim racing endeavors. For Rick Sheldon out of the final corner, Panzegru goes up into fourth, 1.1 seconds adrift from Krohn. It's a marginal improvement from Sheldon, doesn't move him anywhere on the board. That will concern him heading into this race. You can use the draft, but only if you're really in it. There's Hayden Fisher. Oh, and he's going to lose control, and wonderfully hung on there from the professional kite surfer, Nolan.
Wonderfully hung on as well. He's going to continue to try to reel that car in as he comes down through the chute and into the heel section there. That's definitely going to invalidate his lap for sure. It took way too much grass for this lap to count. So at this moment, he's going to have to reset and kind of try again. Now, he did put himself up into third the last lap by with a 1:39.559, but that is still 6.5 tenths of a second off of Anders Krohn's time up on pole.
It's looking good right now for Anders Krohn, who's been having a bit of contrasting fortunes. A couple of weeks ago at Silverstone, very much toying with the competition. It wasn't so easy last time, Nolan, but by no means was he allowed to just run away with things at the front. Doesn't look like Siegel's going to be able to challenge him this time around.
It really doesn't look like he will. I mean, Anders Krohn has just been so commanding when it comes to these qualifying sessions. Of course, the times tend to come in right at the tail end of the qualifying. And remember Road Atlanta, we had that driver that was up on pole for the entirety of the time, over 3/4 of a second. But then the times came right down as the clock expired, and heads up for Fisher. There was a car that had pretty much exploded on the track just up ahead of him. And it was, in fact, Anders Krohn, the provisional pole sitter, who decided that he was not necessarily going to attempt to take turn one, shall we say.
I mean, that's the great thing about the virtual world. And I mean, you've got the real world racers in Krohn, McGuinness, and Siegel in today's field, alongside the track rats and people trying to just make their way into real world motorsports. We had the likes of Schaumann, who raced LMP3, and a couple of other cars as well. But on board with Jeremy Clark, as he rolls his way up the hill. He's racing in the Ferrari Challenge Series in a Ferrari 488 Challenge Evo with the hopes and dreams, just like many of us, I'm sure, but might be a reality for Clark to move into the GT3 Series in the next few years. What does that mean? Maybe a Ferrari. Who knows if he makes a move over to one of the European manufacturers as well, because obviously the great thing about that Ferrari Challenge Evo Series is it's a spec racing series. Allows you to really develop. Someone like Michael Fassbender took his first steps in that series as well. 2 minutes left to go. And what can Clark do as we come up in towards the toe here, Nolan?
I think at the moment he's trying to cling on to the draft from Jackson Ball just up the road, which will certainly help him out in the longer straightaways, particularly out from turn 12 down for turn 1, and then up from 1 all the way through to the inner loop at turn 5. So what can Jeremy Clark do? Is he going to be able to have the speed necessarily to carry this car up and over and put us further on the pole? Fisher goes to second, but immediately gets knocked back down to third by Robert McGuinness, who sets his fastest time on the session with a 1:39.278. But even that, still 6/10 off of Anders Krohn's time.
They still have a long way to go, but they'll get this next lap, and that will be it. When the checkered flag waves here in open car qualifying, you get your one final attempt, and that is it. So these cars as well, Clark all the way in through turn number 1. They have Rick Sheldon in front. So Jackson Ball, how does he deal with this? Nolan Siegel has left the session, so I don't know if that means some technical issues there maybe have precluded him from taking any further part in today's action, but not much time left to go. McGuinness has some draft of his own as he comes in towards the right-hand uphill hairpin. Slings that car and understeers his way through as well, but manages to avoid the grass very well, and now uses that draft in front to just try and get as close to the cars in front he can. Hayden Fisher is in front, so that will help him. It's a car that's relatively quick on pace as well. Explains why McGuinness and Fisher are very similar in terms of the lap time. You can see Max Butler in behind them as through the left-hand sweeper over the crest of the hill and back onto the circuit they rejoin. Penultimate couple of corners in qualifying for these cars. Anders Krohn is back on pit road and watching the timing sheets. Oh no, a bit too much curve from McGuinness. He's into the wall. What's the time going to be from Fisher? That's a big crash for McGuinness. Fisher across the line does not improve his... No, he does. He's up into second. He'll start outside of Anders Krohn.
How about that for Hayden Fisher? Tell you what, Max Butler got the worst out of that deal, though. He ended up having to bail out of his lap because of that crash that McGuinness had out of the final corner. So still watching as cars come across the line to see if anybody can improve on their times. So far, I'm not seeing any major changes. A couple guys are improving on their lap times, but nobody has been able to make a change of position.
Very good spot there, Nolan, because Max Butler actually had his best lap time on that final lap, a 1:39.556. If not for that incident, who knows where Butler could have started in a championship fight for himself. Not up there at the top, but fourth on back, still important. Here comes Escajeda. This will be important for him. Out of the final corner, what will it be? Does not improve. He will start on the edge of the top 10. Oh, and going, I'm sure, for a bit of a trip there.
So Kurt Penzagra at the moment, one of the final drivers to come across the line. I believe the only driver waited on really to cross the line at the end of the session. He still has a minute to work with here before the session fully moves over. So he was going to have more than enough time to get himself sorted. Now, so far, his fastest time was a 1:39.631. That was set, though, some time ago in his qualifying run. So whether or not he's going to be able to really work his way up there is still to be decided. It was set 2 laps prior to this one. So Penzagra, he's got to put in the lap of his life here at the moment.
As one more car across the line, Hayden Fisher, who does not improve, and it is by the closest of margins, 39.245. His best, a 2.15 for Penzagra, the defending champion. What does he do, as this will be the final lap time in qualifying? Checkered flag waves, and Barney vigorously waves the flag, but no improvement. We come to a close. 20 seconds before we work our way over into the race session here, Nolan. Can anyone challenge Anders Krohn?
It's going to be a challenge to see if anybody's going to challenge up Anders Krohn as well up there on pole. We'll only have to wait and see what the 25 minutes of race will hold for us just up the road.
So let's go ahead and take a look at our starting grid here from upstate New York. Can he do 3 race wins in a row here on Tuesday? A 1:38.697. That's Anders Krohn, the pole position. Hayden Fisher alongside in his championship hopes. What can he do from the outside of the front row? Rob McGuinness, Jeremy Clark, row number 2 with Max Butler and Kurt Panzagru, row number 3. Zach Hudson will be the inside of Jackson Bull with Matthew Escajeda and Nolan Siegel on row number 5. Joe Butler, Rick Sheldon, row number 6. The final cars in our grid. Only 12 cars, Nolan, but we know at a track like this, the draft can really play all sorts of games.
It absolutely can. And look at a couple of guys on the right side of the track there. Ended up getting a little bit checked up as they expected Anders Krohn to go. Well, even when the guys on the left of them didn't realize Anders Krohn had some troubles getting that car fired up. But now your provisional pole sitter by over 0.6 of a second, or just about 0.6 of a second, is going to be able to get up there with the iRacing pace car. And we'll have to wait and see how this race is going to play out. I have a feeling this could be one heck of a race we got up the road from us. Watkins Glen in open wheel cars historically has always been an exciting event to watch.
I guess the question really is, can anyone challenge Krohn? Siegel did not take to the starting grid, so just 11 of these Dallara Formula 3 cars are getting ready to go here in upstate New York. 25 minutes of racing, which, at least according to my timing screen, is equating to about 16 laps of action. And really the biggest passing opportunity is going to be up through this run, onto the back straightaway and into the inner loop, using the draft of the car in front of you. It's a long run up the hill. And for Anders Krone, if he can scamper away, it will really be the battle behind him. Hayden Fisher, of course, has championship intentions on his mind, and will be hoping to get through to the end of this race, because staying clean, Nolan, especially in these next 3 races, making sure you don't need to use your drop weeks is going to be crucial.
If you ever have to use a drop week and it's a very high position and it's a high enough points that you end up losing, that's always a good sign, because that means you've been finishing it up high very consistently so far. Obviously, not having to use any drop weeks to maintain that points lead is always going to be the best feeling, especially when you can drop so many points and you're still well clear in the points lead. Unfortunately for Sheldon, that's not really a luxury that he has for himself at the moment.
And he'll be starting from the tail end, but maybe attrition can net him some positions. Of course, the last couple of weeks, it's been Anders Krone stealing top honors and top points as well. But this time around, can anyone stop him here in Watkins Glen International? What a track this really is, and we've really seen some interesting races over the years on RaceSpotTV across the board. The NASCAR Cup Series, NTT IndyCar Series, all when they come here, it always just finds a way to put on a show, and I'm sure we'll see the same. It's been an interesting couple of weeks, the last couple of Tuesday nights since we've gotten the privilege of covering this championship. We started down in Phillip Island, traveled up to the land of the rising sun before heading to the home of British motorsports. Now on our grand tour of the United States, we have made our way to one of the oldest Formula One venues in North America. We are ready to go for 25 minutes of action. The Porsche safety car down onto the safety of pit lane, and once more, the field will be left in control of Anders Krone. I don't think he's going to be waiting for too long to get us underway here. Green flag in the hand of the starter. We are underway. Look at Max Butler already looking to try and jink his way into line as we fly our way down in towards turn number 1. Hayden Fisher already lost out to Rob McGinnis, but now in through turn 1, very wide, almost too wide back in the pack. Behind Max Butler, it's Hudson and Panzagru squabbling side by side up through the S's. That doesn't always work out, and Hudson, I think, will concede. But look at the momentum. Fisher now looks in his rearview mirrors as Jeremy Clark to his outside, but draft on his momentum. Oh my word, Nolan, almost contact between the 3 of them.
They're going to single file now down into the inner loop for the first time today. A very wise move as well, including the guys in the background that were looking to go through us. Oh, look out! Trouble for second place! Robert McGinnis, that's a huge spin, and he's tanked that one into the tire barriers in turn number 5. So the number 9 car is going to be out of this race very early on.
I have to assume that's by himself. Hudson almost off into the grass. Oh, he's off into the grass. Butler almost follows him as well. Chaos in the opening lap is around the outside. Panzagru up a couple of positions. We will have to take a look at a number of RaceSpotTV replays. Rick Sheldon already up into 7th position in all of this chaos as well. Escajeda, oh, those 1st and 2nd in the championship side by side, and Sheldon tries to cut him off late under the brakes as well and holds on. That was last of the late breakers, and Rick Sheldon in the 63 rocks his way up into 7th position.
So Sheldon off to a very good start so far this race. Clearly got the race pace, maybe not so much on the qualifying pace, but at the end of the day, the race is what matters. How we've seen in plenty of different series, drivers coming from the back of the grid to win these races. Don't think that's going to quite have Rick Sheldon, but he can definitely still work up a couple of more spots if he can keep Matthew Escajeda behind. That's going to be crucial as well. That number 3 machine is definitely looking aggressive here, trying to find any which way to get around him. Up front, Jackson Ball and Kurt Panzagru are going to go side by side through turn number 1. And Panzagru gets run off the track a little bit by Jackson Ball as well, trying to come back on, but Ball was already there to cover him off, and Max Butler going to throw his end into the ring now from 6th.
And we've completed lap number 1, and Anders Krone 2 seconds clear from Hayden Fisher. 1.6 seconds back is Jeremy Clark. So Fisher very comfortable in the championship equation, almost side by side. It's Butler who backs off as Panzagru up into towards the top 5 positions. Some big movers and shakers, both Jackson Bull and Rick Sheldon, 4 positions gained in the early stages. McGinnis and Hudson, we will wait and see if they make their way back out onto track. He will get the tow back onto pit road and a fast repair as well. Off into the grass. There goes Ball. He hangs on to that. No momentum lost as well. That was Butler peeking to the inside as well. Panzagru makes a mistake under pressure. It's all kicking off here, down in towards the heel.
Major right front lockup there for Kurt Panzagru down into the toe. That allowed Max Butler to nearly run over the gearbox of that number 8 machine. We saw Escajeda behind, also had a look around Rick Sheldon as we came back down to the opposite end of the heel, but no dice for Sheldon for the move on Max Butler. I tell you what, this is one heck of a race so far. You got so many drivers who are looking so close. And look at this game again, trying to fill the fears of Rick Sheldon there. He's trying to pressure the 63 car into a mistake here. And now we're going to take a look at the replay. This might be the McGinnis just lost it all by himself, had the race complete loss, but then just slammed it hard to the barrier. Well, immediate look on board with Zach Hudson, who was trying to go around the outside down into the chute of Panzagru. And I think he overshot himself there, carries just too much speed, and there was only one way you could go from there.
That was the RaceSpotTV replay. Back to live coverage on board. Let's jump with Max Butler up the hill and look at the momentum on side with Kurt Panzagru. He's going to jink to the outside. That's not where you want to be when you're trying to fight in towards this inner loop. Who's going to be bolder here? You can work too wide, but you can also get squeezed into a mistake. Oh, Anders Krohn lost it by himself. There will not be a repeat victory as side by side, too wide they come. Oh my word, there is drama. What is happening? What is in the water here in Watkins Glen?
What an upset there. Anders Krohn, the favorite to win today, out of it. Panzagru nearly runs it into the grass and compromises himself. Max Butler doesn't get the momentum, though. It's almost like a back race here in this Formula 3 race. You've only got 11 cars. We've had one of the most exciting races. Oh, no! Butler gets jumped off into the wall.
He's held on to it, though. I don't know if there's damage to the left front. Why? I don't even know what is going on. I mean, elbows out racing to say the very least, and Max Butler has been bundled down to 8th position, and now in front of him it's his brother who's actually worked his way up a couple more positions. So Rick Sheldon, biggest mover, now into the top 5, looking in his rearview mirrors as Escajeda once more just lurking there in towards the penultimate couple of corners. There comes the Butler boys. Oh, Butler out, Butler on Butler action, and it's Max who feels a bit more brave and a bit more confident as well. But now 19 minutes to go, and Hayden Fisher in the lead of the race. And well, all of the championship pictures have to be recalculated now, Nolan, because Fisher's in first, Panzagru's in fourth, with Sheldon's in fifth, with Escajeda in sixth. So really Fisher will close the gap, but who knows exactly what's going to happen. Here's the replay, Krohn into the grass and into the wall as well.
Huge hit there for Anders Krohn. I've not seen that in my life. Now look at Escajeda trying to fight the outside of Rick Sheldon. No dice there for him. Max Butler wins out of the battle of the late breakers over Joe Butler. That's one of the hardest crashes, though, I have ever seen at that corner in my commentating life, both in the real world, Arjuna, and in fact watching online as well.
Well, I'm just going to say you need to go and watch the ISO WC. We had plenty of that. It's not pretty, and especially with this new damage model when it sends debris flying across the track, really not a pleasant sight to say the very least. But really now this has thrown everything up into the air because, well, 8 cars, that's all that's left, and they're only separated by about 8 seconds. I think we're going to take another look at the replay. Oh, this is what happened to Max Butler, just body checked off the track. Panzagru, I think, lucky that Butler didn't have some more significant damage to the left front of that car. And we'll rejoin this grouping once more into the penultimate corners. How aggressive will Panzagru be to get past, excuse me, not Panzagru, Escajeda. I keep getting a couple of cars confused here, Nolan. But really, it's 5th versus 6th. That's what we're watching on this track.
And I mean, Rick Sheldon at the moment has had a lot of those positions gained. Oh, look out! Escajeda gets sent off by Max Butler, who went screaming too deep into turn 1, and that settles that battle right there. Escajeda can't be aggressive on Sheldon anymore after getting dumped by Max Butler into turn 1.
Well, there we go. I mean, Sheldon now has a bit more breathing room and can focus down the road on closing on Panzagru. Meanwhile, by the way, while we wait to go take a look at that replay at what happened there, Jeremy Clark, last time around, fastest lap, a 1:39.775. The gap out front is almost now under, it is now under 1 second as we come down the hill in towards the boot section. You can see first, second, and third, only 2 seconds separates these 3 cars. So how aggressive will they be? Because a race win is on the line after that mistake from Anders Krohn. McGuinness is out of the session. I think Anders Krohn might head back out there and try and steal the fastest lap back, but ultimately, with 17 minutes left to go, I am very shocked at that mistake. And now we'll wait and see next time when we head to wide country if he can rebound. On board with Butler is jinking his way in towards turn number 1, just misjudging the braking zone there, Nolan, and into the back of the second place car in the championship.
You saw as well, left his front wing behind, so it's gone from bad to worse for Max Butler, who's going to have to come down pit road to get that resolved. Of course, he's still just now coming out of the boot section down towards pit road, so I would not surprise if we saw the number 10 car coming down pit road. It's going to be a solid, we're expecting it to be about 5 seconds or so laps slower without any front end downforce, a lot slower through these corners. So to see Max Butler coming down would be an understatement. And in fact, he is coming down. So is Matthew Escajeda. So both drivers in the pit road most likely to fix damage from their own respective incidents. Escajeda does have some significant front wing damage as well. We see that crumpled up on the right side.
And we're looking on the left side at that 3-way battle for the race lead. Clark a bit slow in through the bus stop. That opens the door to Ball in the black number 1 from behind. It will be Butler into the box. Let's see how long he's stationary there, Nolan.
Butler off and away. Escajeda out just in front of him. So clearly Escajeda a little bit more damage to face. Maybe had some suspension work they had to do as well. The machine wouldn't surprise how hard of a hit he ended up taking even after they were almost stationary in that runoff area. Up to this battle though for second. You'll see here it's a 1.3 second gap now between Fisher and Clark. So Jeremy Clark has fallen back quite a bit from Hayden Fisher. He's not having to worry more about defense from Jackson Ball, who's just 4 tenths behind him.
And in the case of both of those cars, of course, the frost repair is why they were so quick down on the pit lane. I just wonder if maybe something unchecked on Max Butler that Escajeda forgot, but still half a second between them. And well, Max Butler right back on the tail end now of the car that he sent around as Anders Krohn leaves the session as well. So unfortunately there, he will not be heading back out onto track. There is that battle for 7th and 8th positions. Butler on pass. Escajeda says, I want none of this. And you go ahead and get on through for now.
Probably having some flashbacks to just 2 laps earlier, and I can't say I blame him. I mean, you end up sometimes in these situations where you look at the guy behind you and you think to what happened just a few moments ago, and you think, do I want to take the risk of something similar happening now that I don't have a quick repair that I can fall back on? So he's going to elect to maybe give it that spot up, maybe come back a little later on in the race. We'll have to see how his pace is going to shape up. For the second and third, though, Jackson Ball, definitely the quicker of the 2. I'm curious to see here, Arjuna, if Jackson Ball gets past Jeremy Clark, does he have the speed to run down Hayden Fisher?
Oh, look at that dirty air there as he washes through, coming in through the right-hand sweeper. Now down the hill in towards the boot. Now already 1.7 seconds, 1.8 seconds back is the 87. Hayden Fisher scampering away. He'll be thrilled at the opportunity that has presented itself. Clark runs wide, doesn't open the door to Jackson Ball just yet. As we run down in towards the heel. This is such a fun braking turn, as late as you can leave it. Clark, I think, a little bit later and a little bit more confident as well, but nothing that Ball cannot handle, and it will be the momentum in the run out of turn 1 that he will be watching out for. Clark uses all of the curb and maybe a bit of grass as well in through the second to last corner, and now 1.5 seconds back, so still in the drafting range and across the start finish line. Hayden Fisher will lead another lap. 13 minutes left to go. We are halfway through this action.
Already halfway through, and races like these certainly show how fast these races can fly by, especially when there's so much drama going on in the early stages. At the moment, Jackson Ball definitely within striking distance of Jeremy Clark, and that 87 car coming up to the inner loop, he is going to be a sitting duck. Ball is going to juke over to the left side of the track. It's going to be a drag race down towards that inner loop. Ball has got some speed, but Jeremy Clark is still going to have the line. Does the 87 car give it up? He just barely does on the entry.
And so through goes Ball, but 2 seconds adrift. Now how long will it take him to try and close back up. 2.3 seconds now. Does the 87 fight that one back as Ball off into the grass? Has a look. Does he set up the over-under? Oh, these cars are fighting hard and costing each other time, hand over fist. Now 2.1 seconds the gap. Really, we are also looking at a battle between Sheldon and Joe Butler. Only 1.5 seconds separates 5th and 6th places, and so much championship drama would happen here, given what has happened. I'm trying to go back and look at some of the past stats here, Nolan, but at the end of the day, I think some of these drivers were kind of resigned to the fact that Anders Krohn would take a 3rd consecutive victory and top honors and the points associated with a victory here today.
It is such a shame for Anders Krohn, isn't it? I mean, he's a driver that we were coming in here and we were thinking he would be the driver to win this race after how dominant he was in qualifying. Goes to show that that is not always the case. Anybody can really be fast on a one-lap sprint. It really matters if they can put it together for the entirety of the race, and unfortunately it just did not play out that way this week for Anders Krohn, which means this has fallen perfectly into the hands of Hayden Fisher. So we take a look at some of the biggest movers and shakers so far this race. Rick Sheldon's not the only one that's been on the move. Jackson Ball as well, also up 6 so far where he started today. And did you also see that Arjuna got awfully close there to that barrier between 2 and 3 that I think you would have liked?
And I think just checked himself up, I think, in sheer terror as well, but holds the position for now. In terms of previous race winners on the season so far, McGuinness had a victory, he's out. Krohn had 2 victories, he's out. Then you've got Fisher, Sheldon, and Escajeda, the championship protagonists. 1 apiece for Sheldon and Fisher, 2 for Escajeda. So if Fisher can take the victory here today, will very much be setting himself up in the right way heading into the final couple of rounds. Next time it will be wine country, no champagne for our victor, instead Sonoma's finest. When we head to the track that has just hosted the NASCAR Cup Series, an interesting race weekend there. And then after that we will head to Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and the very famous Road America. What a track that will be in these Formula 3 cars. So many different passing opportunities. And given what we've seen here today, very much, I think, excited about drafting all the way through that race. It's getting close, by the way, between Sheldon and Butler. Now just 7/10 of a second between those 2 cars. And of course, the championship leader, I don't think will fight it too hard if Joe Butler, who is in that 7 car, wants to get on through, but never know. With 9 minutes left, so much chaos, not just here today, but over the season here in the Real Racers Virtual Club. Just look at Jackson Ball all the way into the grass, 4 wheels, hop, skip, and a jump. Not necessarily ideal in a Formula 3 car, Nolan.
That is all it takes for you to get these cars unsettled. The second that back end kicks up, if it comes down and it's on the slightest of angles, you are in for a world of hurt and no doubt a face full of Armco or tire barriers at this place as well. And it was actually at this very corner that we saw that brief replay out of Jackson Ball jumping over the curves. You notice as well, this time Jackson Ball being a lot more conservative, didn't even bother clipping the curves that last time by. So clearly it was too unsettled himself. And I've driven some of the cars in the sim on tracks like this, and I mean, the latest race I can remember was a Formula Renault 2.0 race at Road Atlanta. I remember seeing at least 7 drivers crash themselves out of the race by doing exactly that, taking too much curb, jumping over the grass, and spinning themselves into a barrier as a result.
Well, by the way, the gap out front, 1.6 seconds, so it's coming down. This is a track that has so many different ways to get things wrong, and it's such a high-speed track as well when you think about it. Really trying to carry your momentum, sweep as much of it through all portions and corners here on this track, in through the final corner and across the start-finish line. It's now down to 1.5 seconds, so Ball is feeling something in his car right now, and in the draft range as well for the first time in a couple of laps. 8 minutes to go, and I do think we have 6 laps to go here.
A 1:39.388 last time by for Jackson Ball, a 1:39.762 for Hayden Fisher. Jackson Ball, 4/10 quicker on the last lap. If he can continue to put those laps together, he's going to be right up there with Fisher, definitely before the end of this race. So Hayden Fisher is by no means safe. And already you can see Fisher up front, starting to weave back and forth across the track, trying to break the draft from Jackson Ball, or little he has just behind.
I wonder how much pressure he's feeling right now, because of course this will be crucial in terms of the adjusted drop weeks. Only 7 points behind the championship leader Rick Sheldon is Hayden Fisher, who just like Nolan Siegel drives a BMW, but he drives it around the track. There's that battle. Ooh, for 5th and 6th positions. Rick Sheldon really feeling the pressure from, that's Joe Butler, excuse me, behind. But Max Butler is, there's another car behind. That's Zach Hudson, excuse me. So just getting myself a little bit confused by the liveries. Hudson's still out there and circulating in 9th position. On board with Joe Butler. And if he can demote Rick Sheldon 1 position, Hayden Fisher will be a very happy man.
No doubt he will. Every position that Max Sheldon, or that Rick Sheldon drops back, now I'm the one getting not just drivers confused, but also their names mixed up as well. If Rick Sheldon drops back 1 more spot, that's that many more points that Hayden Fisher is able to score above Rick Sheldon. Now, don't get me wrong. This is still going to be a very good point stand for Rick Sheldon compared to where he started, the way he was set doomed probably to finish this race at the very start of this thing, with all the attrition that we've seen in the early running, and a couple of the drivers obviously eliminated themselves, excuse me, due to their own mistakes. So if Rick Sheldon can continue to pull this race together and fend off Joe Butler just behind, he absolutely still has a chance to be able to potentially walk away with the top 5 finish, which would be huge for right now. Oh, Joe Butler super wide in turn 1 and jumping over the grass and then sweeping back over the right side of the track right away due to the angle he was at upon re-entry.
Yeah, that's not going to help him. And now 1.3 seconds back. Lots of work once more for Butler to do. The Butler boys, I'm sure they'll have some ribbing after this race, because it was looking good in terms of practice and qualifying place for Max, but Joe with the attrition to slide his way up in past his brother. 4 positions gained on the day. In terms of gains, by the way, I saw for a second it was only 1 second between Fisher and Bull for the race lead, so that one car will be menacingly lurking in the rear view mirrors of Hayden Fisher. There you can see the teal and black machine down the hill in towards turn number 8. So much undulation at this track. Basically every single corner has some sort of elevation component to deal with as well. Take this one, turn 9 for example. Up the hill you go first, and then cresting. It's off camber as you really rise over the crest there and get onto the power. Then in through this penultimate corner, you can see cambered in, not so much elevation, but the track falls away from you here through the final corner. 5 minutes left to go, and the gap will be 1.3 seconds between first and second. Jeremy Clark being left back there in 3rd spot.
And last time by, Fisher ended up being about 1/10 faster than Jackson Ball. That was due in part to the fact that Jackson Ball made a couple of mistakes in the boot section that ended up compromising, the biggest of which actually came at the exit of the chute, and that was when he ended up just getting a little bit too wide, had the smallest of nicks with the grass, but that was enough to unsettle the car a little bit more, so you had to lift off by about 2 miles an hour or so, but it's just, that's all it takes to lose so much ground.
On board with Clark as he clatters the curves as well in through the inner loop. Now into the carousel and sweeps his way in towards this boot section. 3 seconds adrift with 4 minutes left on the clock. Gaps are starting to open up, if anything, at this point in time between Sheldon and Butler for 5th and 6th, now up to 1.2. 1.2 between 1st and 2nd, and 1.4 between 2nd and 3rd. So dying stages, mistakes, that is what will mean any sort of changes here. And as we come across the start-finish line, if I'm getting these timings correct, we might still be in for 3 more laps here, Nolan.
It'll be 2 or 3 laps to go. It'll be one of those 2. My time experience is projecting 2 laps, but obviously the previous experiences have proven that these are not the most reliable timing systems from time to time when it comes to these types of timed races here. So projected 2 laps remaining, possibly 3, depending on where Hayden Fisher will be when the finish line comes back around.
And so across the line they go. It's going to be close. It was 3:10 across the line, and with a 1:40, you would think it would be 2 laps to go. Since we're in the dying stages, let's talk about some of our sponsors for today's action. Of course, the entire team at the Real Racers Virtual Club and their community was cheering on Stefan Wilson in his activities at the Indianapolis 500. Qualified his way into the show, and just an unfortunate mistake on pit road brought that campaign to an end. I am sure Stefan will be back in action in 2022. And we'll be looking to see him here on a Tuesday night as well, competing with the drivers of the Real Racers Virtual Club in their pursuit of blurring the lines between real and reality. This event is also brought to you by Merit Partners, your choice for high-end car dealerships specializing in Porsche and Ferrari. So 2 minutes left on the clock now. Still only 1.2 seconds between Fisher and Ball. And Butler is now only 9/10 behind Sheldon, so that gap is closed on up. I will watch for Hayden Fisher to come across the line because I'm curious if we'll get 1 or 2 laps here. It's indicating and trending towards this being the white flag lap, the one that's coming up here. And well, for Fisher, 1 second the gap as he comes through to the final corner. This will be the white flag, Nolan. Can he hold on? Just a couple of miles left in upstate New York.
Jackson Ball is trying to close 1.1 seconds. It's a long way for Ball to gain. And realistically, after the bus stop chicane, he's not going to have a lot of time to be able to make that pass. He's not going to have a lot of places either. I think if Fisher manages to hold off making any mistakes, he might just get away with the race win today.
It is still 1 second as they slink their way up through the hill. And look at Fisher in the 5 car. He looks comfortable. And in through the inner loop, he will hold on. No mistakes from here to the end, and it should be victory, a second one on the season for Hayden Fisher. And in the championship equation, that should push him back into title contention. 2 more races to go after this one. We will cross the coast and head towards wine country for a trip to Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. 8/10 the gap, but 40 seconds left. This will be the final lap. Up the hill, in through turn 7. Fisher looks in control of his car, and wow, what a car he had underneath him. Able to get through some carnage in front of him when Anders Krohn made a mistake, robbing himself of the opportunity to go back-to-back for the 3rd week in a row on a Tuesday night here. Ball almost off into the grass. In through turn number 9, Jeremy Clark in 3rd, 3.5 seconds off the pace, so just shows you Ball's ability to close up, but it's too little, it's too late. In through the final corner in upstate New York, it is Hayden Fisher, the professional kite surfer, that takes victory this season for the 2nd time and moves himself back into the championship picture. Jackson Ball in 2nd, Jeremy Clark in 3rd. The defending series champion still yet to cross the line in 4th position, Kurt Panzagru. The championship leader will come across the line in 5th after qualifying at the tail end of the field. He'll be thrilled with that charge up into the top 5 with Butler and Butler 6th and 7th, Nolan.
I'll tell you what a win there for Hayden Fisher. Jackson Ball nearly had him to half a second away. I'm willing to bet here, Arjuna, give him 1 more lap. Jackson Ball quite possibly could have gotten the win here today, but Fisher managed to weather the storm and come out on top just barely with yet another deserving win.
And so what a race that we had. The real world drivers in Siegel, Krohn, and McGuinness all had a terrible day, and it's the track rats very much punching their way into victory lane. Hayden Fisher, the professional kite surfer that drives a highly modified BMW M3 around the tracks, wins in today's action. Jackson Ball half a second off, 1 more lap. Who knows which way it would have gone. Jeremy Clark will cross the line in 3rd with Kurt Panzagru in 4th. Rick Sheldon 5th with Joe Butler and Max Butler 6th and 7th. Matt Escajeda, the final car on the lead lap, in 8th with Zach Hudson. Anders Krohn rounding out the top 10. Rob McGuinness then in 11th, retired quite early on. You can see the fastest lap, 1:39.249. That was set by Jackson Ball on lap number 14. So one of the best things about being here in the Real Racers Virtual Club is that we get to straight away bring in the drivers as they celebrate. So Hayden Fisher is standing by with Nolan Rempel.
Indeed I am. Well, Hayden, what a race. A lot of drama in this one today, and it was looking like Anders Krohn would come out on top, but after his own mistake, you ended up pulling up on front, and you managed to weather the storm, but Jackson Ball was certainly trying to give you a run for your money there in those closing laps.
Absolutely. I saw him chasing me down at the end, and I saw that Delta dropping, and I was hoping I could just hold him off. and was just able to keep it consistent enough throughout the race to hold him off on that last lap.
So you come on through, you win here at the Watkins Glen Raceway, and of course it's definitely a far from easy track to win at for sure. It's a track that is incredibly competitive. It's very draft dependent as well. Certainly not as draft dependent though as some of the tracks we got coming up, particularly the season finale at Road America. But it is Sonoma next. It's a much more of a technical track. It's a racer's track. It's a track that's not easy to pass at either, no matter what car you're in. So what do we think we can expect coming from next week's race?
You know, I think we're going to see some really fast guys at Sonoma. A lot of us race here at Sonoma. This is one of my home tracks, so it's one I hold very near and dear to my heart. I'm fortunate enough to drive out there a lot, and so I think it's going to be some really close racing, and hopefully the pack will be really close together, and it'll be fun to watch for all the spectators.
We're expecting it'll certainly be fun to watch, just like every race has been so far this season. Well, thank you for coming out and joining us here tonight, Hayden. Congratulations on a very well-deserved victory here at Watkins Glen International, and best of luck next week at Sonoma.
Thank you guys very much.
So that was Hayden Fisher, the professional kite surfer, and like he said, a driver familiar with Sonoma. Will be interesting to see how he goes in 7 days' time. One more lap for Jackson Bull. Who knows how it could have gone? He's standing by, though, with Nolan Rempel.
So Jackson, just half a second, excuse me, behind Hayden Fisher at the end of all of that. But you were one of the biggest movers in that race, up 6 positions from where you started, down in 8th. That, no doubt, has been feeling pretty good to be finishing so close to the edge of the points and then getting up as the runner-up in today's race.
Yeah, I felt I had a pretty good performance today. I didn't do super well in qualifying, which is why I started so low down. But man, that start was exciting, just kind of weaving through. You know, I had the spotter in my ear each lap telling me, it's like, all right, now you're in 6th, now you're in 5th, now you're in 4th. And I knew that I just had to keep moving forward, because if you hang out too long on this track, man, people just draft up right behind you.
Speaking of drafted up right behind people, you were certainly getting awfully close there to Hayden Fisher a couple of times, and had it not been for a few potential mistakes in the final laps there, you could have maybe gotten him, and who knows, one more lap, and you very well could have been right up there with Fisher battling for that win. How do you think the race might have played out if you had just those extra couple of laps to work with?
Yeah, that was really just a bad strategy call on my part. I was kind of purposely hanging back and shadowing, and just kind of, when I passed Jeremy, I really tried to make sure that I did it in a place where I could pass him and then go into a sector that I was better than him. And so I was really trying to play the strategy of shadowing Hayden, and then with the final laps coming down, kind of time my pass to where I would get ahead and then be able to finish first. And so just didn't quite put the laps together to make that strategy happen.
And here's to hoping here that you will be able to put that strategy together next week at Sonoma. Bound to be an exciting race for sure. And with the performance you saw tonight, I'm expecting big things from you, Jackson, coming into that next race at Sonoma. So congratulations on a second place finish, and we're wishing you all the best for next week.
Thanks so much, Nolan.
So that was Jackson Bull. Let's make our way to the final step of the podium, and in an interesting championship fight for 4th on back. Jeremy Clark with a podium, a much needed podium, and he's standing by with Nolan Rempel. Actually, I say that, I'm glad that I took a look. I don't think he's actually standing by, so why don't we make our way over to the driver that was leading the championship coming into this race. Be interesting to see just how close it is at the front of the standings, though. As we make our way into wine country, Nolan Rempel is standing by with Rick Sheldon.
Well, hello. How you doing?
We're doing very well here, Rick, and no doubt you're doing pretty well as yourself. Moved up yourself 7 positions in the race, biggest mover so far on the day. A good thing as well, you were looking to potentially lose the points lead here in this one. You were already in a pretty precarious position coming into this race, starting to tail the field. Of course, all the attrition, you find yourself at the top 5 finish. So all around, I'd say you're driver of the day.
Well, I'm gonna say thank you very much for that. I think you and my mom probably both feel the same way. It's been tough couple weeks. I don't understand it. I keep going out and practicing, getting better, and then I get to the race and I can't do anything. I had a little incident where I confused Jackson in qualifying, and I made a mistake, and it's my fault that he crashed into me, and that kind of screwed both of us up and put us back. And that really was a tough one to overcome. But hey, all the attrition, and the only thing I can say is I'm real happy to be where I am. I just followed Kurt. I know he's really consistent. He hasn't had a great year so far, but he had a great race, and that really helped me a lot, was just stay on him and just watch him and not let him get too out of my sights.
So we come into the final 2 races now. One, of course, at Elkhart Lake, and the other one over in Wine Country. One of those tracks you are able to pass very easily at. There's a lot of very long straighters and hard braking zones, a lot of draft involved. The other track, it's a tight, twisting run through the hills, and it's almost impossible to pass at a lot of places, even in cars like these Dallara Formula 3s. So how do you think the championship is going to be looking? Because you got 2 very, very different tracks, almost complete opposites from each other, in fact, coming up here in just the next couple weeks.
You know, when I think of Sonoma, you know, it's a track that both Hayden and I know extremely well. We've driven it really a lot, and I'm very comfortable. I drive a Pro Formula Mazda out there, so I'm also very comfortable in an aero car out there. And we didn't have a lot in the field at the end of last year, but it's the only win I had in the first year. I really like that track. I don't have the same sense of I'm not sure where I am with some of these other tracks. And so for me, I feel like I'm going to be fast, and I'm looking for finally getting out of the back and having a good qualifying. So it's going to be all about qualifying. And at that point, let's just let it fly. As far as Elkhart Lake, that is a great track. And I want to give props to Mr. Anderson, who once again is not here, for picking that as a closer, because that track is going to be a great one for, hopefully it's going to be a tight championship between Hayden and Matthew and myself. And I'm not sure if anybody else is close enough at this point to get there, but if we can keep it tight and have a good race out there, I think it could be a lot of fun for us guys out there with something to hunt for.
Well, and we're no doubt betting that it's going to be just as fun for us to watch and commentate over as well as it has been every other race so far over the course of the bits of season we've been able to catch with you guys. So, well, congratulations on a top 5 finish here today, Rick. Definitely a huge improvement from where what might have been at the start of the day. Best of luck throughout the championship.
I really appreciate it. And, you know, I want to also say thank you to you guys. You guys came on mid-season, and I've been watching the broadcast, and it's just been a treat to see how professional and entertaining you guys are. You know, I know who we are and what we're doing, and, you know, we don't take ourselves too seriously, but you guys make us look really good. And I think the racing's fun, and we're just going to keep building on it. And we're just so happy to have found you guys.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Rick. Definitely a huge pleasure to be here with you guys, watching every last second of action we got out there on track. So, well, once again, thanks for joining us here tonight, and best of luck in the coming weeks.
Thanks, Nolan. I'll see you next week.
And next time, we will be back in action from Wine Country 7 days from now. The penultimate round of this 11-round championship. And Nolan, like Rick said, we only came on mid-season, but what a ride it's been. And cannot wait to see who comes out on top in the spring Formula 3 season. I think the question I really have is Anders Krohn going to return in the next couple of weeks with a vengeance after that mistake here today?
Well, whatever the case, definitely not a driver I'm unfortunate to say that is going to be able to contend for that title, but definitely a guy that could still go out and contend for wins. The question is going to be, of course, how is that going to play up into the championship, which still has plenty of ways to develop.
Lots of intrigue, lots of chaos then from upstate New York. The Real Racers Virtual Club rolls on for 2021, and we'll be back in action in 7 days' time live on RaceSpotTV. That will be from Wine Country, but for now, for the entire team, for Hugo Luis down in the production booth controlling the action, for Nolan Rempel, my co-commentator, and for myself, Arjuna Kenkipati, so long and goodbye. We'll see you once more on a Tuesday night for more Formula 3 action.